is the dilemma or the dilemma over building value versus building valuation is real.
First of all, thanks Amol and ET-CFO team for inviting me and having me here. Glad to be part of this distinguished panel. I completely agree with Bittu here. The value, when building valuation and building value goes hand in hand. It's something that we can relate with profitability and growth. Both goes hand in hand. But there is certainly a subtle difference between the two. And actually, that difference is what leads to this conundrum of building value versus building valuation. To break down this conundrum, we'll have to kind of understand what's the characteristics of the valuation or the foundation on which the valuation has been built up. That kind of sets in the dichotomy between the two, the valuation and the value. So I think that's one of the important ingredients to kind of assess what's the real value. Because if you don't have this parameters of unit economics or profitability or path to profitability, LTV to CAC, what we say lifetime value to CAC ratios, if those are not aligned, then probably that's concerning, because your real value is far more lesser, or there's basically a gap between the real value and the actual valuation. You can kind of categorize it as CAR, C-A-R. C stands for capital, A is for agility to the external circumstances or external environment. R stands for rationalizing of your spends. So, starting with capital, there are two constraints there. First is adequacy of capital, and second is the right mix of capital that you need to have when you're expanding your business. So, adequacy of capital is always going to be a constraint. You will have minimal reserves in startups, and you'll have to make some tough calls of letting go of few opportunities because you can't invest in all these segments that you want to. Second is the right mix of capital. So quite often I've seen, startup companies depending very heavily on equity funds. But it's important to have a good mix of debt, equity. Also in debt, it's very important. I've seen startup companies or small size companies having on their balance sheet venture debts, which comes with clauses of warrants and subscriptions. If you look at the effective cost of capital for those kind of funds, it's upwards of 25% or 24%. That's going to be detrimental on your P&L. They will act as a deterrent for you to generate positive cash flows. And hence, it's very important to kind of choose the right mix of capital. You can look out for alternatives, like if your requirement is specific to making payments to the vendors, you can look out for vendor financing. It depends on your requirement, and that accordingly you should fix in the correct mix of capital that's going to suit your business model. So if you look at any successful company, you'll see they have a very good skill set to shift their momentum between growth and profitability depending on the external environment. So in times of economic prosperity, all of us are expected to achieve growth, go for that high level growth, and that's possible in that kind of an atmosphere. But it is in times of slowdown where the profitability matters. And it's a current situation where it's a global slowdown, and today investors are shying away from investing in companies where there is no profit. So quite often in startup companies, for example, marketing spends, it's very natural for a startup company to get inclined to the recent marketing techniques or social media campaigns or any kind of a digital media platforms. You will end up spending there, and you'll realize, oh, this is not now making me fetch the revenue which I had actually targeted. So your LTV to CAC, which I was referring to in the earlier question as well, suffers. And if that's happening, it's going to be difficult for you to kind of then ensure that your unit economics are holding good. I mean, it's important that you're able to rationalize all of the spends and get a good number on the P&L by focusing very minutely on all of this smallest of the spends that you're making.